So this video is about schemas related to parentification and how we can get ourselves through them. And parentification means that a parent takes on an attitude whereby they treat their children as if the children are the parent or the children are the caretaker in some way. And there's all sorts of degrees of this. One of my clients, her relationship with her mom has been a big topic of discussion because there was a lot of parentification in her dynamic with her mom. Usually, parentification happens where a parent might start talking to one of the kids about their problems with the other parent or something like that, and going to the kids for advice. They're, in a way, requesting that the kid starts to therapize them or parent them. And it creates a very confusing dynamic for the child, because even as a teenager, a young adult, an adult, it's still really not the role of the child to parent the parent, right? It's not their role. And it creates a lot of confusion when kids try to do that. Confusion and suffering. That's really what I mean by confusion, is suffering. So in the case of my client, she got so accustomed to the role of taking care of her mom and having mom's emotional needs front and center that, and this is also in the context of a parent with some strong narcissistic tendencies, she was so accustomed to being in that role that it just became part of her pattern. And the way that this was showing up in her adult life was something like, I always need to be attuned to other people's needs, because if I'm not attuned to them, then something really bad's going to happen. And it's that vague sense that's there. Even when she wakes up in the morning, it's, okay, who do I need to take care of right now? And this was traced back to her relationship with mom. And since the relationship with mom was where this formed, even though she doesn't really talk to her mom very much anymore, internally, when she does talk to her mom, she still feels that gravitic pull of mom's emotional needs. So there's some schema inside of her active in the present moment that had carried over from what she learned early on in childhood and through her adolescence and so forth. And the issue that from my side, I was thinking to myself, okay, so in her adult mind, she knows that something was off about that dynamic. She knows in theory that, yes, mom was the parent and she was the child, and mom was trying to get her to be the parent. All that, she had that, and she knew that. She also knew on some level that, yeah, all that felt bad. But I felt like we weren't quite getting to the real emotional core of that whole situation, such that there was my point is that there was another layer to get to before we could start to really depotentiate that schema. So I said to her, okay, let's see if this gets at how it really was for you emotionally. If you imagine your mom for a second saying to you, can I sit on your lap and tell you about my day? Is that what it was actually like for you? And then my client goes, oh, like I knew that it hit her like in the gut. Like she felt the impact of that. And she said, yeah, oh my God, that feels gross. That's disgusting. And not that I'm trying to like just recreationally drum up feelings of disgust to my clients, but my sense was that she was suppressing, not consciously, but as a means of having survived in that environment for so long, it would have been difficult for her to feel full on how unnatural and disgusting that dynamic felt for her. And so to get to the next step in our work together, it was important just to draw out what she actually felt. And just putting words to mom's emotional state and making mom that much of a child in that visual, in that image where mom says, can I sit on your lap and tell you about my day? Because I was trying to accurately reflect what my client was already telling me, but that she wasn't quite fully experiencing herself. So then once we got down to that, it was then a matter of helping her decouple from the hidden rules or expectations that mom had upon her that she was still in some sense aligning with, or not consciously agreeing with, but unconsciously saying, yeah, this feels uncomfortable, but I have to do it. As children, we often develop views when in situations of parentification that we are responsible for taking care of mom's issue. And so if you can start to see on an adult level, just in your present moment, adult life and adult awareness and insight and so forth, that actually, no, you're not responsible. You actually weren't responsible for mom. You were the kid and she was the parent. Or you weren't responsible for dad. You were the kid and he was the parent. If you actually weren't responsible for them, how does that feel? Can you allow that to land? If you've been wearing this jacket of, I'm the one that is responsible, or I'm the caretaker for dad. If you took that jacket off, how would that feel? Okay. And if this feels too uncomfortable to do by yourself, then you might need to find somebody to help you process. But what happens beyond that is often for a lot of adult children of either narcissistic caregivers or parents who had parentification patterns going on. There's a sense of I was responsible for them. And the fact that on some level we know that we weren't responsible for them, but it doesn't quite land, it means that part of us is holding onto that view or holding onto that role of being responsible. Because if we let it go, it could mean any number of sufferings that are even worse. For example, when I listened to my dad's problems, that was the only time that he showed loving and caring attention to me. When I stayed on the phone with my mom for an extra hour, when she was telling me about all of her encounters with her lovers, various lovers, and she said, "Oh, I feel so much better about getting that out. You're such a good girl," right? That's the only time I got loving validation from her, right? And so what might be beneath this is, in a way, and I know this sounds really difficult, but is a giving up on the quest to get the specific kind of love and caring attention that we wanted from that specific parent. That's what a lot of times this comes down to. And resolving that level of things would probably require a whole other video. But basically, in a way, giving up the expectation that it's going to happen that way from that parent in this lifetime, it is very painful at first. And then if we're ready to make that step, it allows us space to experience the real thing, to experience real, authentic love from other human beings who are in our life in the present. Or even it allows us to experience in a fuller and deeper way love from divinity and the powers that be. So I guess we've talked about all the pain of delving into these schemas and how nobody wakes up and says, I hope I feel a pronounced sense of disgust today in reflecting upon how bad something was in my childhood. We don't wake up thinking that, right? At the same time, once we go through that process and really we get beneath the emotional level of how it was, and we get to the present moment level of the schema that has been carried over from that time in our life. The schema, for example, of I need to be responsible, or I'm the responsible one for my parent. And if we realize that we're not holding on to that because it's true, we're holding on to it out of some hope that we will get the particular love that we wanted them to give to us. I think it's a fair question to be asked as to whether it makes sense to keep holding on to it. And if not, yeah, that's going to be painful. But it opens us up for something new, for the real thing, for love that does not have those conditions of worth attached to it. Because in my view anyway, love that has conditions of worth attached to it isn't the real thing. It's not, it's something else. Okay, so I hope this video has been useful to you. I hope you've gotten some useful tips out of it. And if you feel comfortable talking about your journey or supporting other people's journeys, you can feel free to do that in the comments below. Or if it's too personal, you can feel free to reach out to me. Okay, take care. Thank you.